it's Angel Vane, and this is episode 101 of My Author's Diary. I am an author of crime thrillers for women, and every week I take you through the ups and downs that I go through as I try to write and publish new books. So don't forget to follow me or click subscribe if you haven't done so already. Now, I'm going to be venting in this this week's video, but before I get into the venting, let me give you an update, a writing update for me. So last week I was shipping off the Christmas Hero, my romantic suspense holiday book in the Hero in Paradise series featuring Julian and Mina, my beloved couple that I just love so much. So I shipped that off to the editor. I got comments back this past Thursday. I'm recording this on Saturday, May 15th, and really no bad comments whatsoever. Like, I'm just like so stoked. There are a couple of things that I just need to clarify and kind of explain why it works. And there's one place where I deviated from my notes and I should not have. And if I just stuck to my outline and my plot notes, I wouldn't have made that mistake. And then the other one, which I thought was really important and kind of really something that I wanted to make sure that I learned from, is that the editor pointed out 2 or 3 chapters where I made something really impactful happen, but then I had like another couple of paragraphs after that. And so my editor was like, you need to stop the chapter right there at that impactful moment and don't do the extra chapters, because then it's kind of like, oh, okay. But you want readers to be like, and it's the end of the chapter, like, I must turn the page to see what happens. So those are kind of like easy fix. So I did learn some good stuff from the editing comments that I got. So that's what I'll be working on this week, is going through those editing comments, and then it'll be off to the beta readers. Yeah, feeling really good about the Christmas Hero. I know that it says that it's out there in pre-order and that it'll be released March of 2022. Yeah, it's going to be more like June of 2021. You go, girl, like they used to say on Martin. Anyway, so getting to what I want to talk about, and I just need to vent. And this brings in my day job, and I know you're like, okay, well, what does this have to do with your author writing life? This is how we mine for like crazy stuff for people to do in our books, and that stuff that you're like, that's not realistic. No, it'd be based in truth. And it'd be based in stuff that like we've actually experienced and seen happen before. Because the stuff that happens in real life a lot of times will not fly in books because people don't believe it. But I'm like, no, people actually do this in real life. And that's why I'm making this character act this way, right? So I'm definitely going to be mining from this and mining from my emotions from going through the experience as well. Because that feeling of frustration and kind of just kind of the annoyance and the frustration of having gone through what I've been going through over the past 2 weeks at work, just like is bubbling within me. And so I want to talk about true understanding and how to not kick somebody when they down, right? So if you're in a situation where you're dealing with somebody and they have made a mistake and they're making maybe a lot of mistakes and they are aware and they are owning up to the mistake. So that's the situation I want to talk about, because if somebody has made a mistake, but they don't see it, or they denying it and they can't quite see it, that's a whole different situation. I'm talking about a situation where people have made mistakes, multiple, not just one, but they recognize the area of mistakes and they are not denying it. They are owning up to the fact that, yes, that was a mistake. Yes, that could have been done better. If you find yourself in that situation, here's what to do so that you're not kicking somebody while they're down. Because that's what I was dealing with over the past 2 weeks. My team has been beat up for making some mistakes. And everybody always starts the meeting with, now we understand it's hard and we understand it's difficult and we understand the pressure that the team is under and we understand that this is not an easy situation, but rah. And so that's the first thing that I want to say. This is the first thing you can do to not kick somebody when they're down. Don't pretend like you understand and then say but. Because when they say, hey, when you say but, it negates everything that's before that, it absolutely does. And I'm listening to people as they're talking to me and to my team about the mistakes. And literally, they say one thing, they say but, and then everything that they say after that is showing that no, you don't really understand. And no, you are not giving us any compassion. And no, you are not putting yourselves in our shoes to try to see things from our perspective and having some empathy for us, right? You're not. So if you're coming at it and you're like, oh, I understand this is difficult, oh, I understand, but guess what, boo? You do not understand, and you are not being understanding. And so that is, in essence, kicking somebody when they're down, especially when they have already acknowledged that, yes, mistakes were made. We know that these were mistakes that were made. So that's the first thing that I would say, don't do that. Now, the second thing, and this is important, and I think this happens in work environments, and this also happens in, personal relationships with friendships and in relationships and things like that. If you have gotten to the point where someone has made a mistake, they have owned it. They no longer need to hear a litany of examples or rehashing that same mistake. They don't need to hear you going on and 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 on about the mistake that was made. What is that doing for that person? In my mind, I'm like, okay, so you just want to keep dredging this up because you want us to feel bad. You want us to be like, I want you to feel like the worst person on the earth for doing what you did. So I'm just going to keep slanging mud on you and keep reminding you of the mistakes that you've made that you've already acknowledged. It is not productive. It doesn't help with anything. It doesn't help to get to a better resolution. All it does is kick somebody when they're down. All it does is pour salt into the wounds. I'm like, don't do that. Like, how is that helping the situation? Nobody is sitting up here denying that a mistake was made. So why do we need to sit here on a 30-minute or an hour-long meeting where you rehash everything that we've already acknowledged? Not helpful. That's kicking somebody when they're down. Try not to do that. And then the third thing is when mistakes have been made and acknowledged, that does not necessarily mean that we completely understand why the mistake was made or what needs to be done to rectify that mistake in that moment. And I find that people have very little patience. Well, you're acknowledging that you made the mistake, so what are you going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Well, you know what? We need a little bit more time to kind of really dig into the whys, the root cause analysis behind the mistake before we can tell you what is the game plan for how we will stop this from happening again. But folks don't want to have patience with you, right? They want to know, okay, well, since you've acknowledged it, then that must mean you know how to fix it. Oh, wait a minute. You don't know how to fix it? Why don't you know how to fix it yet? And I'm like, can you take a breath? Can you give us a couple of days to think through this and really come up with a real valuable solution that will actually mitigate this in the future, as opposed to something that we can think of quick off of our feet that sounds good, but actually is not going to help things in the long run. But you at least feel good that, or well, they said that they're going to do XYZ. Well, XYZ may not work because it's just a quick response. It's not necessarily the best response, but people want to pretend like they understand, but they don't understand enough to give you some bandwidth to actually dig into why did this happen, and let me come up with a really sound, strong thing that we can do going forward to rectify it. You don't have no patience. And so that's the third thing I would say that is kicking somebody when they're down after they've made a mistake. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay? And now the last thing, and this ties into the things I just said before, is people having such disdain for a response of, I don't know. They want to make it seem like, oh, you made this mistake and you don't know why? Why don't you know why? Well, sometimes it's not so cut and dry, because most of the time when there are mistakes made, there isn't one smoking gun. There isn't one big thing that you can point to and be like, aha, that is the thing that broke down, and that is the thing that I have to fix. Normally what it is this complicated web. It's like that perfect storm when you're looking at like a Swiss cheese model and you have the slices of Swiss cheese kind of all laid out, and then if they're in a certain alignment, you can take a stick and go through all the different holes and bypass and not get stopped. A lot of times there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, a dozen different things, that small little breakdowns along the way that any one on their own would not have been a deal breaker, would have been able to be caught. But when you have them bypassing and it's 6 or 7 or 8 different smaller failures that make a bigger failure, that is a lot harder to diagnose. And so the best response that I believe that someone can tell you is that I don't know, but I will get to the bottom of this. I don't know, but here are the next steps that we're going to take to figure out what's going on with this situation. I don't know is not a terrible response. It is honest, it is transparent, and it is being vulnerable to let people know that, look, we understand, we need time, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So don't look at me like I'm crazy when we say, I don't know yet. And most importantly, saying I don't know means I don't know right this minute. It doesn't mean I will never know. And I think that when people hear you say, I don't know, they just jump to, well, you're never gonna know why this happened. It's like, no, nobody said that. That just means I don't know at this moment. We're still working on it, and we're going to find out why, and we're going to rectify the situation. And so when you're in a situation like that, and mistakes have been made, and again, this is a situation where the mistakes have been acknowledged, the mistakes are understood. Doing those 4 things are really kicking somebody when they're down. And I see it, I felt it. I've been, you're sitting on the hot seat, you've made a mistake. The last thing you want is all of that coming at you when you already know that you've made a mistake. And I think we really need to be empathetic towards people and say, you know what, right now they're in the hot seat because they made the mistake. But one day, the shoe could be on the other foot. How would I want someone to treat me? And I don't think people think about that enough. How would I want someone to treat me if I was the one who made the mistake and had acknowledged that I made the mistake? And so there is a way of handling this stuff so that you're not kicking somebody when they're down. And one of the things that I feel like is most productive is once the mistake has been acknowledged, now let's just start talking about the next steps. What do we need to do now? We don't need to keep rehashing the past. We don't need to look at people like they're crazy because they don't have an answer immediately. We don't have to look at people crazy because they don't know yet why the breakdown occurred. We need to start looking at, okay, what's the next steps then that we need to take? Let's talk about that instead of pouring salt in the wounds, claiming that you understand, but you don't really understand. You're not really being understanding. Like, it's really frustrating. And it's really frustrating, especially when you're trying to keep your own personal morale up or keep the morale up of a team. And you can you see it. You see the air coming out. You see the deflation of people as they wither under that type of bashing. And I just think it's so inappropriate. And it's not and I think, as humans overall, we're good. We're good. Humans are good, right? We're good. But I do believe that you get into these pockets where the gang mentality to jump on people who have done something wrong, kind of that cancel culture, and really make somebody feel bad about a mistake and be so unforgiving. We got to get past that because it is not good and it is not productive. It's not productive at all. So that's a little bit of insight into kind of the frustrations and the stress and the just horrible stuff that I've been dealing with at work. And so I thought about, after I got through this week, I really started to think about, because, writing is my escape. And I'm like, all of these feelings that you had, Angel, and all of the ways that people interacted, that is the type of conflict that makes for a good book and makes for a good story, right? And how I can mine from my own experiences and put it on the page, not only just to help myself work through it, because I think talking through it on my video helps me work through it, but also putting it in a book, putting elements of it in the book, working that out through a story also helps to kind of help me to stop rehashing it in my own head and being upset about it. Because I also need to get to the point where I say, you just need to let this go. People do this. How long are you going to keep dwelling on this? How long are you going to keep letting this make you upset? You've got to put it behind you. You have a team that you need to be pushing forward and helping them to get past it. So at some point, we've got to get over it and move on to the next phase. We can't just be mired in that, right? And so that's something that I was thinking about is, okay, well, as painful as the past couple of weeks have been at work, this is something that I can actually use to fuel my writing, fuel some of the characters that I create, fuel some of the conflict that I make occur between characters, and really bring that emotional aspect to life, because I know how that feels, right? And so I can make a character feel some of the stuff that I felt, and I can make certain characters do some of the things that were so frustrating and make a character wilt under it. I'll make a character be like, all right, then come at me, you know, make them be really aggressive with, like, who knows? So I can like play with different responses on the page, not in real life, but just on the page, and really help to work through some of that stuff and bring more 3-dimension to my characters, because we all live in, we live in this gray area, and it's really good to write characters that are in the gray area as opposed to being black or white one way or the other way, and really just kind of like use that as a tool to delve into making deeper and more well-rounded characters. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week. I told y'all I was gonna vent. If y'all disagree with me, let me know in the comments. If you agree with me, more so let me know in the comments. I'd much rather hear about agreements. But if you want a conflict and you want to disagree with me and pop it in the comments, go right ahead. But that's what I wanted to talk about this week. I am off to finishing energy of The Christmas Hero next week. And so I'll give you guys continued updates on that. And that's it for this week. If you want to continue to keep up with me and all the ups and downs that I go through as I try to write and publish new books, click the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the little silver bell so you won't miss when I'm doing a video, and I will see you next time.